All right, let's dive into the tech and tactics that really defined World War II. We're going to get into the gear, the strategies, and some of the truly wild ideas that shaped the entire conflict.
So, we're going to kick things off with a question that sounds, well, kind of nuts. A sword and a longbow in World War II. It seems impossible, right? But stick with me because the answer is pretty surprising. First up, let's hit the ground. The war started with this terrifying new way of fighting that completely changed the game. It made the slow, grinding trench warfare of World War I look like something from another century. And that new way of fighting was called Blitzkrieg, or lightning war. The key thing to understand is that it wasn't just about having a bunch of tanks. No, it was a system. It was this perfect, brutal symphony of tanks, planes, and soldiers all working together to hit the enemy so hard and so fast they never even knew what was happening. And here's exactly how it worked. Step 1, the tanks, the panzers, punch a hole right through the enemy's front line. Step 2, dive bombers, like the terrifying Stukas, scream down from the sky, hitting command posts and artillery. And finally, step 3, fast-moving infantry in trucks pour through that gap, surrounding and wiping out the now panicked enemy forces. This is precisely how Germany just rolled over Poland and France. Now check out this number, 1,200. That's how many rounds per minute the German MG-42 machine gun could fire. This thing had such a ridiculously high rate of fire that it didn't sound like individual shots. It sounded like a giant piece of canvas being ripped in half. That sound alone earned it the nickname Hitler's buzzsaw. And for Allied soldiers, it was absolutely terrifying. And the Germans were innovating in other creepy ways too. Look at this thing, the Goliath. You can basically think of it as a primitive, remote-controlled combat drone. An operator would hide somewhere safe and use a joystick connected by a long wire to drive this little mini-tank, packed with explosives, right into a bunker or up against a bridge. Okay, so from the ground, let's take to the skies. Because it became pretty clear very quickly that controlling the air was maybe the single most important factor in winning this war. If you didn't own the sky above the battlefield, you were pretty much toast. And you don't have to take my word for it. This quote from General Douglas MacArthur says it all. When the Japanese had air superiority in the Philippines early in the war, he saw his troops on the ground get completely torn apart. They were defenseless. He learned the lesson the hard way. Win the air, and then you can win the battle. You know, the whole Allied strategy in the Pacific, the famous island hopping campaign, it wasn't just some clever idea they came up with. The whole thing was dictated by one simple technological reality. And here it is. It was all about logistics, specifically the combat range of their fighter planes. Each hop to a new island was carefully calculated. They couldn't jump any further than their planes could fly, so taking an island was just part 1. Part 2 was immediately building an airstrip on it so they could make the next jump toward Japan. Now, if you look at the raw numbers from the Battle of Britain, you might think it was a pretty close fight. And it was. But the numbers don't tell the whole story. The critical difference was that Germany's struggle to replace not just its planes, but its experienced pilots. Britain could. That failure to break the RAF was a massive turning point in the war. The Allies eventually developed this brutal but effective 1-2 punch from the air. The Americans would fly these incredibly dangerous missions during the day, trying to hit specific targets like factories and oil refineries. Then, at night, the British Royal Air Force would take over and bomb entire industrial cities, aiming to destroy morale and production. It was a relentless, around-the-clock assault. Okay, so beyond the big strategies and the massive armies, this war was also defined by some truly shocking tactics, and by individuals who fought in ways that, well, defied all convention. This is where it gets a little wild. So let's get back to that opening question. A sword in World War II? Absolutely, if your name was Mad Jack Churchill. This guy, a British commando, literally went into battle carrying a Scottish broadsword, an English longbow, and his bagpipes. He's credited with the last recorded kill with a longbow in a major war, an absolute legend. From legendary audacity, we move to just legendary. Cold-blooded skill. Over 500. That's the number of confirmed kills by one man, a Finnish sniper named Simo Häyhä. They called him the White Death. And what's truly insane is that he did it all in just 100 days, in the freezing cold, using only the iron sights on his rifle. No scope. Just unbelievable. But unconventional warfare also had a monstrous, stomach-turning dark side. We have to talk about Japan's Unit 731. This was a secret unit that conducted some of the most horrific experiments imaginable on prisoners of war and civilians, all in the name of developing biological weapons. It is a truly chilling part of the war's history.
So this relentless push for new technology, faster machine guns, remote-controlled tanks, bigger bombers, it was all leading somewhere. It was building toward one top-secret project that wouldn't just end the war, but change humanity forever.
What's really interesting about the Manhattan Project is they weren't just betting on one horse. They developed two completely different types of atomic bombs at the same time. The Little Boy bomb, dropped on Hiroshima, used a simpler design with uranium. The Fat Man bomb, used on Nagasaki, was a much more complex and powerful design that used plutonium.
140,000. Just let that number sink in. That's the estimated death toll in Hiroshima by the end of 1945 from one bomb. The sheer, devastating power of this new weapon was demonstrated in the most brutal way imaginable. A city and its people erased in a flash. And here's the proof of its impact. In his radio address telling the Japanese people they were surrendering, Emperor Hirohito himself pointed to this new and most cruel bomb. He said its power to cause damage was incalculable. That was it. That was the weapon that ended the deadliest conflict in human history.
So, in the end, the weapons and tactics of World War II didn't just win the war, they completely rewrote the rules for the future. The world that emerged in 1945 was a fundamentally different and, frankly, a much more dangerous place.
And that leaves us with the big question, one we still live with every single day. Did this explosion of technology, culminating in the atomic bomb, actually make an all-out war between superpowers impossible to win? It created a new kind of peace, a fragile one, built on the terrifying idea that we could annihilate ourselves. Definitely something to think about.